Hello, everyone. It's Friday. That means it's time to deploy. I'm joined again here by Jim, as we are here every week. Jim, how are you?
Yeah, really good this week. It's been a great week. How about yourself?
Yeah. Oh, pretty
Yeah,
good. We've been very busy planning for the next queue. I'm
yeah.
assuming you guys are in the same kind of mode at the moment.
Yeah, we are indeed finding my way around
Yeah.
the whole planning process and that kind of thing. Yeah,
It's like, what is your plan? World domination. Excellent. What else is
yeah,
new? So,
exactly.
anything you can share? I mean, we're going to probably do more of this sort of stuff on
Uh,
the marketing side. What are some of the things that you've got cooking in R&D?
that's a really good question. I think we're doing a whole lot of stuff around improving the reliability of communications with tentacles and that kind of stuff. Will be coming out soon.
Very nice.
Um, yeah, that's the thing that comes to mind the most.
Is that a long-standing problem I think we've had with customers, which is not a problem, but like a thing about Octopus is like sometimes if things catastrophically fail, we can probably do something better around that. Is that kind of what you're aligning with,
Yeah,
or?
what That's right. I mean, I think it's a real challenge. It's like it's one of the strengths of Octopus, but it's a real challenge in engineering in general, right? Like,
Yes.
one of the great things about Octopus, we've got this tentacle that you can put in all sorts of weird and wonderful places to try and deploy software to. The
Okay.
problem is, the more weird and wonderful the place we decide to try and deploy to, the more difficult it is to talk to that thing sometimes. So, just
That's right.
you know,
Yeah.
learning
Who fa-
to
who
let yeah.
who would have thought that software being resilient to failure is a difficult thing to write?
Right?
That's right. So, anyways, for those of you who are just joining us, this is the internet audio slash video show that we do every week. This is Deploy on Friday, which is basically homage to not deploying on Friday, which is the traditional guidance. Of course, here at Octopus, we think that every day is a good day for deployment, especially if you have a tool like Octopus at your disposal. And it's one that Jim and I do where we talk about the latest tech trends and news of the week as it relates to Octopus. So we might as well kick things off and get going and talk a little bit about what's been happening in that side of the house. So this is an article from Kit entitled Sourcing Kubernetes Manifests from Git. So we have a lot of folks who like to deploy to Kubernetes. We've recently added the ability to do object status checks of Kubernetes. So if you're doing a deployment with Kubernetes, you want to see the status of various things like replica sets and network and pods and all that great stuff. We now showcase that as part of the deployment. This is something a little bit different. This is where I want to get my YAML description, the YAML, the Kubernetes manifest directly from Git. And so what Kit has talked about here is the ability to specify your Kubernetes configuration within Octopus within a step, and then source it directly from a Git repository. So here we have the built-in deploy raw Kubernetes YAML step. This is built into Octopus. And this is a capability now where you can source the location of your YAML directly from Git. If you have a Git repository integrated within Octopus, which is a feature you can now turn on, you can directly inline that YAML from that location. And so Kit talks a little bit about what this feature does, how it works, etc., what you can define. And so our intention there is to try and make this simpler for you to define your deployments relative to Kubernetes clusters. So awesome stuff. If you haven't seen that, by the way, it's up on our blog. You can find us up at octopus.com/blog. You'll find all the latest, greatest information there relative to the Octopus Deploy world. We've got lots of great posts there if you want to chat with us. You can go ahead and do so via our comments we have built in there as well. So lots of stuff there. And we've just recently posted up some new articles there, which is awesome. This is a new thing that we've started. This is the community town hall that we hosted yesterday. So myself, Ryan, Adam, and Michael joined on a webinar where we talked about the latest news and trends. And this is a monthly thing that we're doing at the end of every month. So the last Wednesday of every month, we will host a community town hall. And this is basically featuring anything and everything that people want to see. So this is demos, this is news, this is live Q&A. So this is something we've also added to our arsenal of things to talk about. So this is the community town hall. And you'll find a recording up on our YouTube channel. So this is something that we're starting now as well. Our talking heads. So
Looks
not
like
good enough to just have you and me. We need 4. We need more.
Looks like I had a few people join along and throw some celebrations out there.
That's right. So the nice thing about our platform, we're utilizing a platform called Session, and it's got built-in emojis and it's got built-in Q&A and all that great stuff. So we had a really good conversation. In particular, Michael talked a little bit about our GitOps story. So we had a bunch of demos. So Adam did a demo showcasing our insights. Ryan here did a demo of our GitHub Actions relative to deployments. And then most excitingly, Michael Richardson talked a little bit about our future vision relative to GitOps. And so this is the first time we've ever told this story. And so Michael basically shared with us the kind of vision we have going forward relative to Octopus, and how you have to think about this and how we might challenge or tackle this problem, etc. So if you want to hear a little bit more about that, you can check out our video, which is up on YouTube. And that's the first of many community town halls that we'll be hosting.
Awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of which, if you're at all interested about our next one, you can go to our website, which is octopus.com/webinar or /webinars. Doesn't matter. They both resolve. We have a couple of webinars that are coming up. So we have James, who's doing a webinar entitled The Art of Balancing Cloud and On-Prem Deployments. That will be on July 13th. And then our second of many community town halls will be on the last Wednesday of July, which is July 26th. And you can go ahead and register for both of those. If you want, you can also view the previous webinars up on that page as well. So we have them all hosted there. And these all point to our recordings, which are available on YouTube. Again, this is octopus.com/webinar. Make it a homepage. And if you don't feel compelled to, make it a bookmark. That'll be good. So there you go.
Make it your homepage. It's like the,
your
the
homepage.
1990s like and subscribe, isn't it?
That's right. Like and subscribe. This is a new page that we have. This is at octopus.com/company/customers. If you're looking for sort of a motivation to why you might want to pick Octopus as a deployment tool, this is a new site that we have available off of our octopus.com property. And you can select a industry that you're interested in and hear a story about one of our many featured stories about how people have been successful with Octopus. So we have Stack Overflow, Recruit Wizard, EB Games, a whole bunch of other customers as well listed. So if you're at all curious, you can go find those up. And those are some customer stories that we've just turned on. And this is a new feature of our website, which is awesome. And something that you and I have talked a little bit about is tenanted deployments. So this is another use case page that a lot of customers have sometimes a tough time trying to figure this out. Like, what is this? How does this work? And so we have this tenanted deployments page, which is available at the URL you see here. And this will walk you through basically the who, what, where, when, and why of tenanted deployments. And if you're looking for that sort of one-stop shop for understanding what this is and how it works, this is the page to go ahead and reference. And we give you a bunch of basically high-level information and insights as to how this works in Octopus and why it might benefit you. So go ahead and check that out as well. So that wraps up some of the things that we've done in just the last 7 days relative to Octopus. We've been pretty busy. And so might as well switch now to some of the other news in the industry. This is an article that was posted yesterday by the folks over at 1Password. Sorry, it was on the 27th. My apologies. About securing your CI/CD pipelines with 1Password service accounts. So to explain what this is, first of all, 1Password is something that we use at Octopus. I use it personally, and it's a wonderful password manager. I've used it for many years. Good Canadian company based out of Toronto. So shout out to all the Canadian folks there. And so what this is basically a ability for you to access any service account credentials you have persisted in 1Password in the context of a CI/CD pipeline. So if you think this sounds a little bit like HashiCorp Vault or other Key Vault integrations, you would be correct. And so what they've announced recently is now you can actually take your shared secrets that is shared within your organization and utilize them in the context of, say, for example, GitHub Actions. And so now GitHub Actions can access these shared credentials. You create an access token, and then you use one of their built-in, GitHub Actions that are on the marketplace, and then you can access those service account credentials. So just to show you the YAML, I know everyone is dying to see the YAML, but basically you have the ability to load a secret via this action here, and then you'll create a 1Password account token for accessing it, and then you'll access the secret directly this way. So it provides this URL scheme or URI scheme for accessing those things. And then once those are accessed, you can use them in the context of your workflows, which is fantastic. So lots of good stuff going there. I could see you using this, Jim. You know, we persist a lot
definitely.
of credentials. So
I thought we're all on OIDC for pipelines now, though.
there's a bit of mix and matching. So there are some cases where people won't flow their identity, and in some cases OIDC won't flow because people don't have any integration within their product suite. If you are looking to access service credentials for various things, like it really depends on what you're accessing it for, right? So service accounts come in a wide shape and sizes. So obviously, yes, you would love to flow identity, but in some cases you can't do that. And in some cases people don't even support that. So you'll use a platform, like let's say you'll use a static code channel, static code analysis tool, and you have to use an API key for that. You may have that persisted in 1Password for a service account, but you don't want to obviously propagate that across everywhere. Now you can persist it in GitHub secrets. That's no problem. But the problem is if you update or rotate those secrets,
manage it.
How do you manage it? So this gives you access now to those service account credentials within 1Password. So that's awesome. Yeah, I like that. Now we talked about GitLab before, and we talked about their 16.0 release. I think they're up to 16.1 now. So GitLab is a great platform, and they're adding a bunch of stuff here. So I watched their webinar a couple days ago about this, and they talked a lot about AI. So they have a code suggestion tool, very much like akin to CodePilot. They're really touting DevSecOps around GitLab. That's where they see their value add or differentiator compared to GitHub. And so GitLab has articulated all the new things that are in here. They have over 55 new features in their 16 release, and we highlighted some of them. The thing that I missed, though, and this is the part that I wanted to draw your attention to, is that they have a new thing here called CI/CD components. So CI/CD, you may think it sounds a little bit like pluggable bits and pieces of infrastructure for pipelines, and you'd be correct. In fact, the way I like to think of it is this is like GitHub Actions for GitLab. So they're dubbing this CI/CD components, and what these are reusable building blocks for your pipelines. So the way that you've done this before in GitLab is they never had this concept of a marketplace. If you wanted to use reusable parts of a pipeline, you'd have to reference the repo in GitLab to do it. And we looked into doing this, and it was kind of like it wasn't as curated, and it wasn't nice and stuff. So what they're adding now, and this is available as a beta, and I almost missed this, is this new feature called CI/CD components. And I think this is awesome because this is where I think GitLab needs to go. They need to add the ability for people to grab off the shelf the various parts and pieces they want to formulate their pipelines relative to whatever they're doing at GitLab. So the documentation is available there. It's, as I said, available as a beta, but I almost missed this when it first came out. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So if you smell the YAML here, it almost smells like GitHub flavored YAML, but the idea is exactly the same. So you'll create a components repository just like you would create a GitHub action repository. You'll give it a certain structure, just like you would do with a GitHub Actions structure. So there's various things that are expected as part of a GitHub Actions story. But these are, again, components. And then you can test it out. They talk about how you build these things out, and then you release it, and then you create it via the release keyword as part of your pipeline. Once it's available there, you can utilize it as a fully qualified domain name. So that will qualify to the path of that component. And then you can also articulate a version for this, just like you can do with GitHub Actions. So GitHub Actions has a similar sort of mechanism built in as well. And in addition to that, they also have a CI/CD catalog that you can take a look at as well if you're so inclined. So this is something that I missed, and I went back and looked at this, and I was like, oh, that's great. That's awesome. So I'm really happy to see that GitLab's doing this, which I think will help a lot of folks in terms of formulating their workflows relative to GitLab.
It's what happens when you release 55 features at a time, I suppose.
I know. I mean, come on. I mean, like, I did watch their webinar. I have a pass. I mean, I missed it, but yeah, I went through these and I was scrolling just to reiterate, and I was like, oh, and then I was like, wait a minute, I missed this, and I'm like, that's awesome.
Is that a library full of community components then, or is it some from GitLab themselves, or a mix?
So the way that they're referencing it is via directly through you'll give that fully qualified domain name to your repository, and the components registry, I think, which they mentioned further down. There's a catalog. and I don't know where this is going to be added, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's so experimental right now. I
So
haven't actually had a chance to take a
make
look
your
yet.
own and reference those. You might be able to
Oh yeah,
reference other people's if you do the fully qualified domain name, whether there's a Git lab blessed feed is, we're not sure. Yeah, cool.
yes, and I don't know where this is exposed or if it's exposed, but I like the direction this is going. I think this
Yeah,
is the
for sure.
correct direction. So yes, that's very cool. And again, I'm gonna have to go over this list again because there was so much stuff in here that I missed it. So yeah, it's just the risk of these big releases. They're up to 16.1 already, so there you go. So kudos to GitLab for that. That's awesome. Troubleshoot with Kubernetes events. This is an article I saw on the Datadog blog. This was posted just a couple days ago, and it's quite a detailed blog post. I liked it a lot because when things go wrong with Kubernetes, no one can hear you scream. So there are a variety of moving parts and pieces. I liken it to almost being on the in the cockpit of an airplane, right? There's lots of knobs and switches and stuff when it comes to Kubernetes. And if you've looked at a relatively complex YAML file, you'll know what I mean. But when things go wrong, one of the best ways of diagnosing, aside from querying the API, looking at logs and error states is a great way to kind of figure out what's gone wrong. And so this article from Datadog talks a little bit about the types of events that are raised in Kubernetes and what you can watch for when things may go wrong or you need to notify yourself of things. Now, given the fact that this is around Datadog, Datadog is in the analytics space, so they do monitoring, etc., of your solutions. And so knowing what events you want to trigger on, such as failures, etc., will be super important. So they talk a little bit about this, the type of events to watch for when things happen, when things get evicted, when you have contention within memory or within storage for volumes, whether or not you utilize the scheduler. So there's all kinds of events that can fire off. And obviously, kube control is the CLI for getting access to a lot of this stuff. So the kube control really does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. But this kind of walks you through kind of what you can do. And then, of course, they round it off with how you can monitor these events at scale with Datadog. Of course, you have to plug that. But I did like the article for some of the summary of notes that they provided there.
Never had the pleasure. Sounds
well, that's not exactly true. We monitor something just as complex, which is Octopus Cloud. We have our fair share of events as well, and we use a variety of tools for doing that. So don't sell yourself short. We have a lot of events that we track. So I'm curious because you're doing around the deployment side, eh? So we do eventing within Octopus. You can get notifications via that way. You can also get alerts, etc. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do as well relative to that space, which is interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Switching gears over to GitHub. So GitHub published a bunch of updates recently in the last few days. I just want to mention them here. So repository rules public beta updates. So they're adding a bunch of enhancements to their rule sets. So in particular, they've updated their UI. Rule sets are a really powerful mechanism for locking down kind of like what you can do on both an org and a repository basis. And this is really nice because it allows you to basically layer these rule sets across an organization, which is obviously a good thing. We utilize rule sets quite a bit. We utilize Terraform for this, for enforcing policy, etc. So there's a variety of required checks that we specify and get enforced via Terraform. There's lots of ways you can do this. So they've added UI updates, so you can specify repository for various things. So it's nothing major. There's also bypasses that you can specify. This is useful if you have certain cases that, this path for our workflow doesn't make sense. So just go ahead and bypass that. And you can do that for a variety of, you can do this for user roles. You can do this for specific types of operations. So an example here is integrations like bots or apps that are now bypassable at the org level. This is really useful if you're doing let's say you have a rule set in that says, will not accept a PR unless signed by a person. You could do automated PRs, for example, like let's say you use Dependabot, and because Dependabot's a thing that runs, you may want to create a bypass for creating auto updating PRs, for example, for dependencies, for example. API enhancements, bug fixes, bunch of changes, etc. So I just want to put that on folks' radar there that this is repository rules. This is the updates to the existing beta that is currently running in GitHub. This is another. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm really enjoying
What's
the
that?
new UI. I'm really enjoying the new UI that's coming through on GitHub. It's
Yes.
a really subtle change, but it's actually really refreshing.
Yes. Yeah, they've kind of simplified it, haven't they? They've made it a lot more just black and white, basically. Like it almost looks like a wireframe when you navigate it sometimes. I, of course, navigate it in dark mode. I have pretty much dark mode enabled everywhere if I can, being the nerd that I am. But yeah, I saw some feedback on it on Twitter. Some people were saying, what has happened to GitHub? You know, like people don't recognize it and they miss their shadows and gradients and such. So did you happen to catch why they implemented that change?
No, I didn't at all.
Okay, you just saw it and you were like, okay, I'll go with it.
Yeah.
Typical SaaS user. Whatever. This is what we're doing now. You know, don't question anything. Just, you know, kidding. New tool to secure your GitHub actions. So this is useful if you're wanting to know kind of like what permissions and access your current GitHub actions are utilizing relative to the token that's assigned to it. So when you run GitHub actions, you have this sort of not ephemeral, but it's sort of like transient context token called GitHub token, and you can use it for a wide variety of operations. And so that causes some concerns at times because you don't know what that token has the ability to do in some cases. And so there's this release of a public beta called Actions Permissions. And this is a tool that monitors your GitHub Actions workflows and recommends the minimum security set of permissions necessary to run them. This is wonderful because sometimes you'll over allocate. You'll give too many permissions to your runs and you'll be like, yeah, I guess I need it. I guess I need to do X or Y. Like I need read and write as opposed to just needing read. And so this tool will actually give you a recommended minimum set for permissions, which is great. I never know how to lock this down. Like I'm just like, give me everything. And then you realize, oh yeah, this is public. Probably should lock this down a little bit. So yeah, that's a new tool that's available through GitHub. I think a lot of folks who worry about this will like this change. So as an example here, you can see these are the runs that I've had of certain jobs. And then you can see the minimum required permissions. And then the for this run as well as other runs, and you can see like I want read contents for read access for contents, pull requests and issues, whereas this one only needs read write contents permission, for example. So it acts as an advisor for providing these security permission sets, which I'm a huge fan of doing things like this. This is obviously a good thing. So you can go check out the repository, see how it works, kind of how it hangs all together. I am a big fan of things like this. I don't know about you, but yeah, I like these things.
Yeah, help me not think about it. That's great.
That's right. Just it's typical. You're like the classic typical SaaS user. Don't make me think. I like it.
Yeah,
it's perfect. I like it. That's 100% true. So, anyways, you can check out the blog post entitled "New Tool for Securing Your GitHub Actions." So that's new now. This is more of a sales pitchy blog post, but I do like them nonetheless. So this is entitled "The Economic Impact of the AI-Powered Developer Lifecycle and Lessons from GitHub Copilot." So as everyone knows, AI and Copilot are eating the world. And we mentioned the Stack Overflow survey recently and how people were doing the sort of trust but verify stance when it comes to code generation via AI, GPT-4, etc., code-generated code from AI. And so this talks a little bit about the cost savings and what you can realize. Of course, they're going to overhype it. This is why NVIDIA's stock has gone through the roof, I guess. So $1.5 trillion added to global GDP is the touted claim here. This is, of course, coming from the sort of research that they've done. They announced this at the event.
Then.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah. You know, job done. You know. So yeah, they talk a little bit about setting this context here: GitHub Copilot, etc., etc. People are using it. Copilot's seen huge adoption. So, and then as part of that, they talk a little bit about how, you know, yes, there's going to be a little bit of trepidation and FUD maybe around Copilot. Certainly, if you take a look at some examples there are certainly some cases where I've seen code that's generated from GPT that, you know, has divide by zero bugs and things like that that creep in there. But I think that as it evolves and gets better, I think that the story will get better over time, obviously. But they do talk about how developers using this, and it seems like a large percentage are, based on the Stack Overflow website survey. They're seeing huge productivity advancements. So now I think, anyone can be a coder. And I think this was always the promise of low code slash visual design tools. But I think that with AI assisted, I think that's the important qualifier there, is it's assisted environments. You can see some huge gains for developers. So less experienced developers benefit more from GitHub Copilot. That's obvious. So basically, the less experience you have, the more benefit you'll gain from that. If you're super experienced, like here if you're to the right, you'll find Copilot as kind of ancillary to your.
How do I get
your
to 100% experience?
I don't know. I don't know. I was wondering that myself.
Of the experience, no more experience.
Right. I know everything. That's right. I know that I have the docs memorized. Forget Google. I am Google. So GitHub is the engineering system for the age of AI. Well, yes, that's right. And as some rightly point out, all the experience. That's right.
All
Thanks,
the
Ben.
experience.
So growth in commits in a Gen AI repository. So you're seeing the hockey stick there. That's kind of understandable, but yeah. Faster, happier developers. So 55% faster coding, 46% more code written, 75% more fulfilled. Again, a measure. How do you qualify that? If you don't have AI before, now you have it. I don't know. So anyways, I like articles like this because they do give a state of sort of perspective relative to this. So have you? I was going to ask you if you're using Copilot.
I am, and honestly, my experience matches up a bit with what we're seeing here. Right? Like, I use it for things that I don't do a lot. I use it to write regex. I use it to write bash scripts. I use it to. I don't use it in my I don't use it to write production code often.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like trust. It's that sort of trust but verify. I think give it the grunt work that you don't want to do, and look. I understand why you would give it to regex. No one wants to do regex. So.
And I kind of give it throwaway work too, right? Like I don't think it does a great job of writing the kind of code that I want to keep for a long time. Because
like parts of CSV,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, code that I want to keep for a long time. I actually want to write less of that. Like I want that code to be less code, not more code, which is what this can help you do.
Right.
So yeah.
Is there anything else? Like I've seen people use it for debugging. I've seen what's the problem with this code?
I asked it to explain an error the other day. That was really helpful. Actually, it's just something I didn't understand about C#, and I said, "Hey, why am I getting this error here? Because I thought it would work." And it's like, "No, it doesn't work like that. This is why you're getting that error." I'm like, great.
Awesome. Okay. And then I think also I've seen it used for unit test code generation, but I don't know how effective those tests will be.
I would not be doing that at all.
I have seen some folks, namely the Primeagen, when Copilot first shipped. I saw his live stream with him, and he was tearing it to pieces. He was like, "That's a divide by zero bug waiting to happen right there." And what happens if you have a different localized date? And so there are some gnarly sort of cases where I think it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time it's going to be reasonable. I think so. Yeah. Interesting. Until then, we'll still have a job, I guess. So
still got time to get to 100% experience.
That's right. I'm going to be a 100% experienced person. That's right. So 100%. Article here from Grafana Labs, just to wrap things up. An inside look at how React powers Grafana's front end. So Grafana 10 recently shipped. This was at their recent conference that they announced, Grafana 10. They had a bunch of new things that were in it. And as part of that, they've written this blog post that talks about how they came about the decision to use React. Going back to 2018, they were debating on using Angular. And then they evaluated it over time and said, hey, maybe React is a better choice for this. I like posts like this. I like hearing what people think. Even if I don't agree with their opinion, I like hearing how people are thinking about technical solutions this way. And so I think this is if you choose React, fine. If you choose Angular, great. If you use Vue, no problem. I don't think there's use the right tool for the right job, and I don't think there's a one tool that's going to solve every problem. But I do like hearing how people go about resolving within themselves and with the team. Like, how are we gonna approach this problem, and what is the best tool that's going to serve us going forward? And so this article kind of goes through those bullet points, which is great. So they talk a little bit about how we use React to power the entire front end. Grafana is hugely a huge visualization tool for monitoring and reporting, etc. For their dashboards. They say their top key benefits are, the ecosystem is immense. Performance will allow us to scale. They're probably, they're dealing with millions and millions of data points, and then it's widely used. The sort of canonical ones that give you faith in a framework, for example. So if something isn't used heavily, you're kind of like, what's going to happen in 5 years? So I know that we use React. So yeah. Do you use React at all?
Yeah, I use React wherever I can. It's a choice I keep making again and again throughout my career at this point, to be honest.
Awesome.
It's got
I've done both Angular and React, and I see benefits in both. I've always likened Angular as like a Honda Civic. It just runs and does what you want, and it's got everything, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. React's more like a 1969 Mustang. Like, you have to maintain it yourself and find the parts on eBay and stuff, and it will give you access to all, like, the engine isn't like all wrapped up in plastic like they do in today's cars, but you can get access to all that, but you better know what you're doing. But it's super powerful. And then I would say, other frameworks resemble the Homer, like, I don't know. But yeah, so they definitely articulate some of the benefits and challenges. And so I think these are important things to have a good conversation about when evaluating these technologies. And so utilize blog posts like this when evaluating. I wish they had gone into more specifics, but that's okay. They talk a little bit about, obviously React hooks. But yeah, definitely take some of this with a grain of salt, but also use it as a way to inform your own decision. So there you go.
Awesome.
Yeah. That just about, as they say, wraps it up for us. Anything else you want to impart on the folks here who are watching on the live stream?
No, nothing comes to mind.
All right.
Can't wait next week.
Yeah. So if you happen to see something, stumble upon a news article or technical article that you would like us to talk about, feel free to send us a comment on the YouTube channel there. And we will see you here next week on Friday for the next edition of Deploy on Friday. Take care, everyone. See you then.